If I asked you this question, what do you think one of the greatest, life-saving medical breakthroughs of the 20th century would be? A surgical robot? A miracle drug? An AI-powered diagnostic system? Those answers sound reasonable, but the truth is, one of the most powerful medical solutions in modern history was far simpler than most people imagine. It was made from just three things: sugar, salt, and water. That's it. And with that simple combination, one doctor helped save millions of lives, especially the lives of children. His name was Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis. He was an Indian pediatrician, and although most people have never heard his name, his work changed global public health forever. What makes his story so remarkable is not just what he discovered, but where he proved it. Not in a high-tech hospital, not in a cutting-edge laboratory, not with expensive machines or unlimited resources. He proved it in chaos. In 1971, during the Bangladesh Liberation War, millions of refugees fled into camps under horrifying conditions. These camps were overcrowded, unsanitary, under-resourced, and extremely vulnerable to disease. Then cholera struck, and when cholera hits, it kills fast. Not because it tears the body apart in some dramatic way, but because it drains life out of a person with terrifying speed. Severe diarrhea and vomiting can strip the body of water and essential salts in just hours. Children become weak, their eyes sink, their skin dries, their bodies collapse. At that time, the standard treatment for severe dehydration was intravenous fluid, IV therapy. And yes, IV treatment worked, but in the refugee camps, there was a brutal problem. There were too many patients, too few doctors, too little equipment, too few IV supplies. In other words, the right treatment existed, but it could not reach enough people. And when medicine cannot reach the people who need it, it stops being a solution. In some of those early outbreaks, mortality rates were devastating. This is where Dr. Mahalanabis saw something others were not fully prepared to act on. He understood that even during cholera, the human body still had an important ability. The intestines could still absorb water if glucose and salts were present in the right balance. That meant something revolutionary. If a person could not get an IV in time, maybe they could still survive through something taken by mouth. Not a fancy drug, not a complicated machine, just a properly mixed oral solution. So Dr. Mahalanabis and his team began using a mixture of water, sugar, and salts to rehydrate cholera patients orally. This became what the world would later recognize as oral rehydration solution, or ORS. And this was not just a technical medical decision. It was a philosophical one. He was turning life-saving treatment from something only specialists could deliver into something families and basic health workers could help administer. He was decentralizing survival. That is what made it powerful. Because in a disaster, the best solution is not always the most advanced one. Sometimes it is the one that can be used immediately by ordinary people under terrible conditions. And the results were extraordinary. The death rate dropped dramatically. A method that looked almost too simple to be taken seriously began proving itself in one of the harshest humanitarian crises imaginable. Think about that for a moment. A child on the edge of death, no advanced equipment, no polished hospital room, no miracle injection. And yet, with the right balance of water, sugar, and salts, that child could be pulled back from the edge. That is not just medicine. That is elegance. That is what I call the miracle of ORS. Over time, this simple therapy transformed global health. Oral rehydration therapy became one of the most important tools ever used against dehydration caused by diarrhea, and the scale of its impact is almost hard to grasp. Researchers have estimated that ORS has helped save tens of millions of lives, especially among children. Tens of millions. Let that sink in. Some inventions make headlines because they look impressive. Some technologies attract attention because they feel futuristic. But ORS did something far more important. It worked. It scaled. It reached the poor. It reached the forgotten. It reached the places where modern systems often fail. That is real innovation. And maybe that is why Dr. Mahalanabis still feels so relevant today. Because we live in a world obsessed with complexity. We admire what is expensive. We trust what looks advanced. We assume the best answer must be the most sophisticated one. But his story reminds us of something uncomfortable and beautiful. At the same time, sometimes the most powerful answer is not the most complex. Sometimes the most powerful answer is the one simple enough to reach everyone. That idea matters even more in 2026. We are surrounded by AI, robotics, biotechnology, predictive software, and tools that would have sounded like science fiction just a few decades ago. And those things are extraordinary. But if we are not careful, we begin to confuse complexity with wisdom. We begin to think that progress always has to look futuristic. Dr. Mahalanabis teaches us otherwise. He shows us that true progress is not defined only by technical brilliance. It is defined by how many lives it can touch. That is why ORS is such a perfect example of frugal innovation. Frugal innovation does not mean cheap in a weak sense. It means brilliant under constraint. It means solving a massive problem with limited resources in a way that is practical, scalable, and humane. That is exactly what ORS was. It did not require electricity. It did not depend on elite hospitals. It did not demand rare equipment or massive infrastructure. It required knowledge. It required clarity. It required a simple formula that could travel farther than privilege. And maybe that is one of the greatest lessons in this entire story. A life-saving idea becomes truly powerful when it does not remain trapped in the hands of experts. It becomes powerful when it can move through villages, refugee camps, disaster zones, poor neighborhoods, and ordinary homes. When a mother can use it, it becomes powerful. When a local worker can teach it, it becomes powerful. When a child in a forgotten place can survive, because of it, it becomes powerful. That is the kind of greatness history often overlooks. Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis was not a celebrity doctor. He was not packaged as a global icon. He did not become famous in the way the world often rewards people. But fame and importance are not the same thing. Some people change the world loudly. Others change it quietly, one life at a time, until the number becomes too large to count. He belonged to the second kind. And honestly, that may be the noblest kind of greatness. Because this story is bigger than medicine. It is about how we think. It is about what we value. It is about whether we still have the wisdom to recognize that beauty can exist in simplicity. In a time when the world keeps chasing the next big thing, Dr. Mahalanabis left behind a reminder that feels almost timeless. Humanity does not move forward only through bigger machines and smarter systems. Sometimes it moves forward because someone looks at a deadly crisis and finds a solution so simple, so practical, and so humane that the world almost misses its genius. And yet that genius changes everything. So yes, the future matters. Technology matters. Innovation matters. But we should never forget this. A truly great solution is not just advanced. It is accessible. It is not just intelligent. It is usable. It is not just impressive. It saves lives where lives are hardest to save. That is the legacy of Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis, a man who proved that one of the most beautiful answers to a massive human tragedy could fit inside a cup. Sugar, salt, water, a simple drink, a revolutionary idea, and millions of lives saved. If this story stayed with you, follow this channel. Here, we tell the stories of people who changed the world, even if the world forgot to say their names loudly enough. And in the next story, you may meet another person whose quiet idea changed history.